Hi, I'm Juanita from Nearby Artisans, and I'm going to show you some of the things you can do with the shadow feature in Silhouette Studio. I went ahead and typed this in, and this is just typed in. The only thing I did was change the font. It has not been welded, and it has not been turned into a compound path. And I'm going to go over now to the shadow feature. So I'm going to go over to the right panel. I'm going to click on the image that is a circle and half filled in. The shadow icon is the one to the extreme right. And these are the choices you have: cut around shadow, that I'll go over with later. Your types of shadows, now this means none, and that's basically if you've made some changes and you decide you don't like any of them, you want to go back to the beginning, you could just click none and then it's gone. This one here is a dynamic shadow, and this is fixed. These are your X and Y coordinates for the shadow. This is your transparency for the shadow, and you can pick colors and pan and release the shadow. The first thing I'm going to show you is that if I click on this word and it has not been welded or turned into a compound path, and I click a shadow, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the fixed for now. I see the pan shadow here. I have this ability to pan that shadow the way it is. Now, you think that, oh, I pan the shadow, but I'm moving this, I'm not getting anything. That's because this little pointer right here is what you use to move around your shadows. You can see there, and you can move it quite drastically. There's how you pan the shadow. And if you notice that you're not getting changes up here until after you have stopped panning it, and then it'll go to whatever coordinates you have there. I'm just going to go backward to show you the, now if I take this, I'm going to click on no shadow. Now if I take this design, this word, and if I weld it and then turn it into a compound path, I no longer have the ability to pan a shadow. Show you here. Put a shadow in there. And the pan doesn't show up. I don't know why, but it doesn't. And it also doesn't on most images. So we're just not going to use that, but I wanted you to know how you can. Another thing is the cut around shadow. What that does is it's going to cut with the cut line, and it's going to cut around the shadow. So if I'm doing this for, say, print and cut, or I print this out on paper, I'm using printable vinyl, sublimation printing, it will print the image and any shadow that's around it, so I don't lose that. And that's kind of a neat thing, especially for sublimation printing. And I do cut around my designs for sublimation printing. I don't like to have all that white space out here. Some people just put the whole sheet on. I cut around them if I can. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away that, and I'm going to make a copy, a duplicate of this, so that you can see that they're the same. Now I have a duplicate of the same things. I am going to put a dynamic shadow around that one, and this one is going to be fixed. Now, right now they look the same, and you can see that they're the same there. But what the difference is that the fixed shadow is going to stay exactly where this is. It's not going to move at all. And I'm going to go ahead and move these out a little bit so that you can better see how that works. So right now this is at 62 and 45, and I'm going to go ahead and move it out a little bit more and down a little bit more. And then I'm just going to use those same numbers. So 125, 125, and I'm going to use the same for here, 0.125 and 0.125. So that I have the exact same shadow on the exact two designs here. Now, the difference is if I take the fixed shadow and say I move that. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. The shadow stayed exactly where it was. As it moved, it's like if you took a took this royals, made a duplicate, and grouped them. What you do to one is going to do to the other. The dynamic, on the other hand, if I move that 90 degrees, it is going to stay, put these up together, it is going to stay where it assumes there's a light source. So if you've put a drop shadow that drops to the right and down, this is going to maintain a shadow of this right here design to the right and down, even as this moves. They're not attached. So what you see here is, see this here, it stayed right where it was, and you can see which one you've used for both of them based on, you just click on it and it's going to tell me that this one was the fixed. This one was the dynamic, in case I have done the fixed or the dynamic and I don't know which one I've used. So, and now if I give it a little color, you'll see even better. I'm going to go ahead and give the design some color. And this one. And now you can see that this one stayed the same, but this one stayed to the right and below. This one didn't. This shadow now is off to kind of to this side versus this one staying where the light source, where it assumes there's a light source. So that's the difference between the dynamic and the fixed. I'm going to put these back to where they were. And now see, this one, it assumed the light source. That one just stayed exactly where it was, which is kind of nice to have both options. And I go back to my shadowing. And now you can also change, again, the coordinates. So you can move this a little bit further out, say if that's what you want. Now if I give this, go back to the color, it's just better to see what it does. So this here, I'm going to move this out of the way. So now I have this here. I have this kind of a shadow. I could decide that I wanted it to have even more of a shadow. I can move it around. I can move it out that way. I can make it less or more transparent. Let me move it, let's see. And the other thing that I can do now is I can give it another color. Let's say I want it to be, I don't want it to be so much as a color as I want it to be a background. So I could do that. Give it a little background thing there, a shadow background. And what it is that this is the exact same duplicate, and just the X and Y axis is changed, and but it's this exact same. So if I went ahead and released the shadow, now once you release the shadow, you can't do anything with it any longer. It's done. So I mean, now see if I go in and I try to do any of the things, I'm getting pretty much a no shadow. I'm going to click on both of those. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to center them. And see, they're exactly the same. So this is just, all shadowing is taking the exact duplicate and changing the XY coordinates of the second one. So, one of the things that you can do also, though, with a shadow is, and I get rid of that and start over, is that you can make a shadow. I'm just going to use the fixed because I have no reason to want it to have the dynamic for now. And it's just easier to get to on the edge there. So now I have the shadow, and you can see it's attached. I'm going to release that shadow. And I want a thicker shadow than this. I want it to have some thickness to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the green. I'm going to get another shadow. And then I'm going to release that shadow. I'm going to go in. And I'm going to click on the shadow. And I'm going to create another shadow. and I'm going to release that one. Now I have the 2, so I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to get a shadow, release shadow, and now I want to see what I have here as far as the shadows. So I have my original, and now I have these 3, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click on, I could make these all a different color. So what I'll do, just to show the ones that I have, I'm going to go ahead and click this one, and I'm going to make it red, just so you can clearly see it. And click that one, and I'm going to make it maybe purple. And all of those are the shadows from the previous, made from the previous shadow. And now I could take all of those 3, I could have more, I could have 4 or 5, however many I wanted, and I'm going to go ahead and click on all of those. I'm going to weld them, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn them back to gray. There. And now I can put this up here, and I have a nice thick shadow. I can go ahead and align that to the left, and then I think I'll align that to the top since I want a drop down shadow. And there I have a nice thicker shadow, and I could have this be pretty thick right here. Turn this into the blue. And there I have a nice royal shadow. And now this is where if I wanted to make sure I cut this all out for the print and cut, and I click on cut around shadow, it's going to cut here, here, and then as soon as it sees the shadow difference, it's going to cut that section. So I'm going to get the whole thing here. Now, what I can do is I'm going to get rid of this shadow for now, and say I wanted graduated colors. So I'm going to go ahead and click this one. I'm going to get my shadow, release. You have to release in between. I'm going to click on the green. Please. Now I could go in there, get rid of my top one, move it out of the way, and now I can go in and say I wanted different colors of blue. I wanted different shades of blue. Let's go ahead and bring this over. Now when you're using one of these, I really like to use these instead of trying to find colors on the color wheel, because sometimes I scroll around and forever. I just like to get this. I get this from the Pantone website. If you try to do it if you try to color this from this one, you're going to get, it's going to actually get the color from this entire thing. It's going to turn this into a variation of this. So see how this actually is just like these, only tiny? So that's what you're going to get if you try to click on this dropper for this. It's not going to pick a color, it's going to pick this entire thing. So what you want to do is you want to go over to the dropper in the fill panel, click on that dropper, get your color, and now you have the solid color that's in there. I found that out the hard way. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to pick the second one, and I'm going to get my my dropper, and I'm going to the second lighter, and then my third one out here, because I can see the color differences from here. I'm going to get the dropper, I'm going to get the lighter one, and now I can go out. I think there were only 3. And put this on top. Well, I'm going to group these. And I'm going to put this on top. I'm going to line it up from the left side. And now I think And now you can see these different layers of color, which I could do that. Now, if I was going to do that, what I want to do is I want to make sure to, if I'm having those layers of color, I'm going to go through and get myself a, if I was doing this with layers of vinyl, each one I'm going to go in and I'm going to take out the previous one by hitting subtract. So I'm going to line them up, take two, subtract, take the third one, subtract. I don't want to layer these on top of each other. And I don't think that I can subtract with all of them, but let me just see what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on all of those. Let me get a copy of the top one, just in case. Get out of the way. Now click on those and hit subtract. Now it worked for this top one. So now I could, although this would kind of be kind of neat to put on a shirt, especially if it was print and cut. I mean, that would be kind of neat. You see it, but you don't really, you know, I mean, you see the color, but there's all these different little swooshes and stuff. So this would be a really nice print and cut. I might actually do one of those. And then this tells me where I can line this up. So I line that up right there. And then I'm still getting my graduated colors in the back. The colors based on that darker. Now another thing that I want to do, if I'm, see I have all these pieces now. You wouldn't want to cut that out. But so another thing that I'd want to do if I were getting layers, I'm going to go ahead and turn these all into one. The one right here. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to click on this one again. Now, if I were wanting a really thick shadow, what I would do is I'm going to get my shadow panel here, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to release the shadow. Get a second one. I'm going to release the shadow. You have to release it every time because I don't think that it'll let you. Yes, it won't let me do a shadow of a shadow unless I release. So, fourth one. Okay. So now if I want this thickness like I had before, I'm going to take my top layer off. Again, I'm going to go ahead and weld those. And what I want to do is, I'm not going to want these little, I'm not going to want my cutter to go through trying to cut all these little wavy things here, although I could leave them if I want them and if I don't mind. But I'm just not going to want those for every one of them. So what I'm going to do there is I'll do some point editing, and I'll get rid of some of these points here and get just a nice flat section there. It doesn't have to be flat. I want to keep the shape of my original. So my S, I just want it to have that, but on. I don't want it to have little tiny waves of the where the S was. So I've edited that, and let me see if there are any other places, like right here. So I'm going to edit this one and just get rid of these little waves from where each one of the R's was. But I really want to make sure to not alter the shape of the design. I want it to still look like a shadow. And I think this one down here is the only one. But see how each R had its own little curve because there was a curve there, but I don't want those curves. I just want one solid curve. So I'm just going to edit, and I could go in further and edit this if I needed to. And that's good. And that's about all. So now I'll go out, put this here, line this up as best I can. Again, get my alignment tools, line it to the left, And then I could just do the XY coordinates, or just, I think that looks pretty good. And now I have a nice thick, and I could even do a shadow of this thicker one if I wanted to. Get my shadow thing. And now I could have that one be a different color. I have to release the shadow first. Release that shadow. Go give it a color. Maybe just say brown. Oops. To click on the shadow. Brown. Yeah, I released it. I just have to be able to click on just that shadow. I might move this over a tad bit just to be able to get to it. Okay, there. And brown, and there we go. And now this. Line that up there. Kind of line it up like that. Get this one. Make sure they're all touching. And actually, I did like it better when it was the shadow because it didn't have the entire, let me just see if it did. So I could get a shadow from the shadow. Oops. Okay, now I'm going to take and I want to click on the shadow. And I'm going to go up to my shadow tools. I'm going to create a shadow. I'm going to release the shadow. I'm going to make it a brown color. And now I have 3 different layers. So I have my blue and then this green and the brown. And I could take, I think I want to take and not have so much transparency there. And now it's like in little layers. So that's just a lot of fun to do with the shadowing. Another way you can do the shadowing is, I keep my top one here, and get rid of these. If you wanted several and you didn't want to go through, release the shadow and do all of that, you can also do shadowing by the replicate tool. You just go into the center one, click on the one with the 2 arrows and 0.025 and replicate, 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 and it would just keep making. And now I could also say for each time that I want a color change. So here's my top one. So this one would be, say, red. My next one, yellow. The one after that, green. The one after that, maybe orange. And see, now I have several layers of this. And then I could just put this in here. And so now I could really make this be a lot of fun. And again, for designs or for layering. I mean, that looks pretty cool there. This could be just regular text or a design or a shape. It doesn't have to be the letter. If I wanted to make this one baseball lettering, this is how you do that. That's this baseball lettering right here. So what I did here is I have my first color, and now I'm going to do an offset. So I'm going to offset, and I don't think I want it to be that large, so 0.075. I want to turn that offset white. I want to do it now while it's highlighted. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to click on my offset and click on the and click on the shadow icon. I go over to my over to my fixed shadow. I'm going to turn that red. First, I'm going to release the shadow. And now I'm going to turn that red. Kind of baseball colors. And now I have this nice, so this right here, this is basically what this is. This is my offset. This is my lettering. And then this is my shadow. And see, that's just kind of neat too. That would be really neat for a shirt. And if it was a white shirt, you wouldn't have to cut out the white part here. But there's just so many things you can do with this shadowing. It's a lot of fun. I hope you try this. I hope you try a lot of the different things in there. There's more. It's just hard to go over all of it. And please like and share my videos. Please subscribe so that you'll know when I do another video. I'm going to do them more often than I have.